behalf of Team Cover FX, Team Live Tinted, Team Create and Cultivate, Team Bumble Hive, thank you guys for being here. This is such an exciting event for us. I'm Steph So, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Cover FX, and I'm so thrilled to launch this foundation with you guys today. So, Power Play, I want to say 2 words about Power Play, and I'm going to read them because someone wrote them for me, and it was just so beautifully written. So here we go. One of the things about Power Play as a foundation is it's really coming to our Cover FX family with this powerful purpose. And the purpose is to push the limits of what's possible with your makeup so that you can do the same. And I just couldn't be more thrilled to welcome these power players because each of you all are pushing the limits of what's possible in so many different ways. We really can't wait to hear from them. And then one more note about Create and Cultivate. We're so thrilled to be working with an organization that pushes women to go for their dreams, to reach for their dreams, to do whatever is possible. We believe you can do whatever is possible with a perfect face of makeup and letting your real self shine through. So I think there's that, and the one other thing we wanted to say is we could not have created a better partnership than with Live Tinted. So, you know, Cover FX as an inclusive brand, we couldn't believe that there was a movement out there that said my skin is not a trend. I think that phrase says it all. I hope you guys all walk away wearing the shirt. But yeah, you know, because beyond just inclusivity on shades, we just feel like, you know, beauty is about inclusivity on every level. So not just the color of your skin, not just the color of your foundation, but also how you make it your own. So we hope you guys all enjoy hearing from this awesome team. And thank you for being here. I'm going to pass it to Deepika.
She took like half the words out of my mouth on why I was going to say the Cover FX partnership was so awesome for Tinted. But hi everyone, I'm Deepika. I'm the founder of Tinted, and this whole situation right now is a total dream come true. Tinted was launched in January, so very, very recently, around the whole premise of supporting and empowering all the shades in between. And so what that really means is, I feel like there's been all these questions about like, oh, who is it specifically for? And the whole idea of Tinted is it's for anyone and everyone who feels underrepresented. We're creating representation for you. It's not about a race, it's not about an ethnicity, it's about making sure that anyone out there feels like there is a space for them. And these kind of conversations like we're gonna have today with these incredible 4 panelists is so exciting and exactly why Tinted exists. And I'm gonna do my thank you because I feel so grateful that this is all happening, and Create and Cultivate, of course, perfect partner, like she said, empowering women. And Cover FX to me, and we're gonna really talk about this during the panel, is one of the very few brands in the beauty space that you can say really to their DNA is supporting inclusion and diversity. And I think that that is such a powerful thing, and we're all today wearing our Power Play foundation. And it really is awesome. So I think just to kick it off, I would love if everybody said their names, their Power Play foundation shade, what you guys do. And personally, this is just a me thing. I love to know like your cultural backgrounds.
Cool. So my name is Victor Ramos. I'm an influencer on Instagram. I'm shade N90, and I'm an Afro-Latino. I'm Puerto Rican.
Nice.
Hi, my name is Asiana Alexis. I'm shade 100. And I guess a fun fact about my cultural background is my great-grandmother was a slave, but she also has Indian in her. And my great-grandfather was Caucasian, so that's where I get like my light skin tones and light eyes.
Yes! Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
You get to be shade 100, that's fun.
I know. Hi guys, I'm Ami Desai, and I am shade G50. And I don't know, when people ask me like, what do I do? I'm a backslash kind of girl, so I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a host, beauty expert, all that good stuff, also building my own business. But what you don't know about me, and I always say this because when you look at me on Instagram, people are like, oh, she's just a cute mom that likes to, you know, dabble in beauty. And it's like, I produced for CNN, I toured with Oprah for the O Network, I worked the red carpets, and I just feel like being behind the camera, in front of the camera, on the field, that is what has led me to where I am today, and which is building my own beauty business as a mompreneur. So that's what I do.
Wait, did you say your shade?
Oh, yeah, G50, and I'm
okay.
Indian. That's my background.
I'm Tashina. I run Logical Harmony, so I'm a content creator in the cruelty-free and vegan beauty space, which is super exciting. I'm wearing shade G40, and it's typically what I wear. And I think my background is, I mean, different.
Yeah. Okay, but just to say something on that, I think it's really important that we have you on this panel for that reason. The biggest thing that we're learning with Tinted is that this kind of conversation doesn't need to be just staying within women of color. The whole concept is that everyone should care and that it's not just supposed to stay between us. And people like you being on this panel just shows that that change is actually happening. So props to you for that. I personally think. Okay, so I totally want this to be a conversation. It's not like any formal sort of situation. And at the end, we are going to have questions. So definitely keep those in your mind. So just to kick it off, I think it's really important that we talk about, we're all involved in the beauty space in some way, or it impacts our life in some way. I would love to know if any of you guys can chime in here about what you feel the roles and responsibilities are for the beauty industry, and kind of like what you feel is the the discussion of inclusivity, obviously, right? It's like, what do you feel like the beauty industry's kind of purpose is in moving that conversation forward?
I think with beauty, because nowadays with social media, people see just caked on makeup and like the flawless eyebrows, and everyone thinks like, oh, that's what I need to look like. And so brands, I think what was missing, they were missing the different type of shades and the skin tones that come with all these unique people that are out there. And I think for the longest, people didn't have what everyone needed. It was just like they didn't have the undertones, and they just had like this, and it was just a set things, and they didn't really go into deep details and uniqueness that helps express everyone in their uniqueness between their flaws. And I feel like social media has done a well job of letting people know that individuality is okay, and to find a brand that represents that and not just try to look like what's out there on the internet right now.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I think the responsibility for brands is huge because, and I think about it as a mom for the younger generations, because I've heard it way too many times, which I know it's a big reason why you started Tinted. Too many women and men have said, I grew up not, identifying with anybody on the screen or in the newspapers or magazines, and that's how I felt. And for me, it's like too much time has passed, enough time has passed where brands should be identifying and acknowledging that there is a huge demographic out there of in-betweens, so.
Totally. And I was actually going to ask this later, but since you said the mom thing, if you guys don't follow Ami's daughter, who has her own Instagram, you have to. It's going to make every day of your life. Mimi is like the cutest thing in the world, and as a mom, I want to know what are your biggest fears and excitements about raising a young girl today with this whole crazy social media world, and sort of how you can set her up for success?
I think about this a lot because I do, for my own brand and business, I put myself out there, and every day I do put my family out there too, and that comes with its trade-offs. But if I really think about it, not only for my daughter, but for my son too, it's like, if you think about it with just beauty, I really want them to admire other people's beauty without questioning their own. That's the biggest thing. So it's like, there's room for everyone. It doesn't have to be competitive, and it doesn't have to be just for you and just for me. There's space for everyone, but also, I think about it and why I do this. It's because I really do have a conviction for what I do, like sharing my beauty secrets and all that kind of stuff, whatever it may be related to my cultural background, anything and everything. And I want both of my kids to just be really authentic, be real, and just be themselves. And I think if they do that, whatever platform they choose to do that on, they're gonna be gold, hopefully.
Yeah.
Retweet.
I feel like the beauty industry's responsibility is to kind of eliminate that standard of beauty.
Yeah.
Because there really is no standard of beauty. Everyone looks completely different. Everyone's a different shade, and just kind of I feel like that barrier is being kind of broken down finally. But I think we need to stop putting a standard to beauty. Everyone has something that they think is beautiful, and everyone's different.
It's being broken down because of people like you, which is so awesome. I would love to hear your perspective, being the male on this panel, of what that means to you to be a male in beauty.
I think for me, being a male in beauty, it's definitely a different experience, because I think one thing we constantly hear in beauty, or society, when it comes to makeup, is always girls, girls, girls. And I think that also there's a specific kind of guy that people will think of when they think of makeup and boys. And I kind of want to eliminate that again. It's like that standard, that the stereotypes. Like any guy can wear makeup if they want to wear it. Like I'm sick of people always listening to other people. Like who cares? Like do what you want. If it makes you happy, like just get it done. Like that's really how I feel. And I think it comes from growing up in a space where I was encouraged to kind of do whatever I want if it made me happy and it wasn't like hurting other people. So yeah, I feel like that's my responsibility, is breaking down the stereotype of females in makeup and then what kind of guy would wear makeup, and just doing my own thing.
I want to give you a hug. That's like so awesome. Okay, so Adriana, I feel like we see so much in the media about what's happening in Hollywood, and it feels like diversity is being moved forward, but because you are actually on those sets day to day and actually seeing it, I would love to know from like the insider perspective, do you really feel like there is moves happening in Hollywood for diversity?
Yeah, I think just with things like this, you know, people speaking up and me having the opportunity to be on a platform like this and speak out about it, I think those are the type of things and situations that encourages change and starts conversations about it so things can change. For me, when I'm on sets, like makeup is always fun, but I found like with my skin tone, it's very hard to match. Like I never been on a set and it's like, this is for you. And we just have to like mix and play, and sometimes I'm looking ashy, sometimes I'm looking a little dark. And so it's always been a little struggle for me when I've been in those sets, and when you're rushing last minute, you don't have much to say. There's just like, well, you need to go on set, and then you're not happy with how you look, and it's a big problem. So I feel like with Cover X and Power Play, it's very important to have brands like this, like I said, that helps people know you don't have to conform to something else that you're not. You don't have to, it's okay to speak up, and it's okay to be like, yo, this is not working for me, and not just settle for less, because people will just slap whatever they want on your face and just get you out there, and it's your name on the line. So I think it's important to have people like me and everyone up here on the panel who's not afraid to speak out and just let them know like we need change and we need more evolution in the beauty business.
And I think the same thing happened to you that happens to me, is like I actually bring my own makeup to set, because that's happened to you too, right? Like right before you're going out.
That's always been my thing. I always carry this bag. Everybody's like, what's in here? I'm like, oh, makeup. And so I've always been prepared. Like I take it with me. It's over there just in case, you never know. So I've always had a makeup bag just in case. And that's when I actually started learning how to do makeup, because I'm like, all right, I know I'm going to have 5 minutes to go in here and change.
Let's do it.
Like, just got to make it work for you.
It ends now. Tashina, okay, so I've been stalking your page ever since this panel is coming together, and it's so cool to see your commitment to vegan and cruelty-free products. And I know that that's something that Cover FX is really strong about, so you kind of found a natural connection there. I would love to know, because I am admittedly so not good about that, and I want to know how I can learn to like easily incorporate that into my life, because to me it's like a no-brainer. We should be doing it. So like, how did you get so passionate about this? Was that always your thing? And like, any tips for someone like me who just wants to be good at it?
Yeah, totally. I've always been passionate about animals and animal rights, and it was something that was always interesting to me. Like, I was a kid in middle school doing reports about animal testing and how it shouldn't happen, because to me that was just like a no-brainer. Like, we are not the same as animals, bottom line. Sorry. And so I think, you know, to get started, obviously I'm going to recommend my own website for that. I've spent so much time creating resources for people, and it really started, you know, in 2011 when I went vegan. It kind of just made sense for everything in my life to change. And at the time, it was very confusing and very overwhelming, and I think that's where most people are. It's like, they know cruelty-free exists, they know vegan exists, but they don't know how to bridge that gap. They don't know what good sources are out there, and it's really hard to find someone that you can relate to as a person too. And so I really wanted to fill that gap and create the resource for like the average everyday person that wants to know what moisturizer can I get at Target or Ulta, but also what can I go to Sephora and get, or Nordstrom. And so I think just being more aware of options and pushing brands to be vocal about it the way that Cover FX is huge. They've always been very vocal about being cruelty-free and having lots of vegan options, and now they're completely vegan. And I think that, you know, part of that is a huge part of the brand taking responsibility, but also consumers pushing for brands to take that responsibility. And I think in every area, consumer voice is huge.
so many tweetable moments. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I think we all agree that Cover FX is, to like their actual core, doing this right. Who else do you think, from either an influencer perspective or a brand perspective, that's really making sure that they're owning this message of inclusivity?
Honestly, I would say, I mean, I think there are a lot of great big personalities, especially now with the political climate, social impact movements that are going on. There's a lot that are doing really a lot. But someone that sticks out to me a great deal is Eva Longoria. She's been doing it for a long time, even back when she was on Desperate Housewives. And I think what I admire about her so much, especially for the Latino community, is what she's done and represents, especially as an ambassador for all the brands that she's a part of. But aside from that, honestly, it's just me scrolling on Instagram every day that I find the most inspiring, empowering people, because that's when, you know, I'm looking and it's so hard to forget that it's really judgy. It's, you know, everyone's comparing themselves to each other on Instagram. And so when you have those people that are like, I'm gonna stand in my truth, I'm gonna show you guys my flaws, and I'm just gonna put it out there, and it's just the everyday gal or guy, and you're like, damn, like, I can do that too. And that, you know, I feel like that's the most inspiring.
I mean, I agree with that. I think just there's so much inspiration out there from everyone.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And Instagram and YouTube have made that so much more readily available. And it's so exciting to see how many people are, like you said, putting their truth out there, and they're not afraid to stand by their opinions, their style, whatever it is that makes them unique. It's amazing to see that come out more and more.
Agreed. I have this memory, like a very distinct memory, going into a drugstore as a kid and feeling so defeated because there was nothing that matched my skin tone, and I dyed my hair blonde, got the blue contacts growing up in Texas, and it's a big part of the reason I wanted Tinted to exist. It's like, no kid should feel that way. You should feel really great about how you are, exactly how you are. I would love to hear if any of you guys had that memory or that moment where you were like, should I change who I am?
I mean, I have that memory a lot, which is exactly that exact question is the reason I think most of us do what we do right now. It's the reason why I have my platform, because there's nothing like having, I realized, especially when I used to do makeup and I'd work with brides, especially South Asian brides, which is a huge reason I got into it, because there was nobody that could actually, at the time, 10 years ago, no one knew how to do it. No one knew how to color match us, and I'm like, we're going to India and spending all this money on our clothes and jewelry, and then we come back and it's like, oh, that's what I'm gonna look like on my wedding day, you know? So, but there's nothing so amazing when you see someone that you've somehow been able to gift them just the right tools or the right techniques with the right products, and obviously that may require some DIY and mixing and matching, which we've talked about, which in the end, I think is obviously why a lot of brands are now perking up their ears and being like, oh, there is this demographic that exists that we need to cater to, so.
I feel like for me, it was with my hair, because I have really curly hair, obviously. And growing up, I was around a lot of people who had straight hair and just long, long, long hair. And so I went through a process where my dad was like, don't get a perm. And I was like, I'm getting a perm. And it like broke my hair off. And so I had to realize, like, I had to own up to my curls were cool. And it's like now it's coming back, and that's like what everyone loves. And so I learned to like embrace every little thing about me, even my eyebrow scar. Some people were like, oh, she looks like two, like you need to cover that. And people would always cover my eyebrow scar for the longest, and now everybody's like doing it. And so I realized your flaws, eventually they just come around, and it's just like a trend. Like you say, my beauty is not a trend, it's who I am. And so they try to make it a trend, so it's okay to like let those things that's unique about you stick out, and don't try to cover them up, because eventually people are just going to try to be that and do that, so just stick to who you are.
That's how I felt. I think not only being a person of color, but being a boy, you would never see like boys in like Sephora's or anything. And I remember telling myself, okay, if no one's gonna be at Sephora, then I'm gonna be at Sephora. Like, I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna be that person that changes that. And I think for a long time...
And you were, right?
Yeah. And then I think for a...
Let's just point that out.
I think for a long time, we were seeing boys, but none of them looked like me. I think being like a person that, you know, Afro-Latino and stuff, I think in my culture, like, it's like, oh no, boys aren't wearing makeup, like, what you doing? Like, you know what I mean? But I was lucky enough to have parents that didn't think like that, and just growing up in New York, like in Brooklyn, it was like more of like an open mind. When I was growing up, not really when my sister was growing up, but I feel like it was changing when I was in high school. And yeah, I felt like that was my thing. Not only were I was seeing boys, but I wasn't seeing boys that looked like me. And I kind of wanted to see everything. So you have to make it happen.
I love that. Yeah, you gotta just make it. Don't wait for somebody else to do it yourself.
Exactly.
I love that. Adriana, there's this tweet we found of yours. Okay, what did you mean when you tweeted, sometimes you gotta be a beauty and a beast?
Well,
I love that so much. I don't know why.
that's literally my motto, because it's like people, you know, with social media, like it's all what you see. And so people see a pretty face and sometimes that's all they see. And I've been fortunate enough to have the skin and be like a beauty icon and all these other things. But deep down, I'm just a tomboy. Like I'm rough, like I do my job. And I think it's important to know like beauty is one thing, but also the work and everything else you do behind the scenes and who you are on the inside and as a person, it's like that needs to be a beast. It can't just be this cute little girl that's trying to please society. And so that's who I am. I feel like you have to have a drive about you. You have to have something that no one else can stand up to, something unique about you, that drive that just pushes you to that next level. So be more than just your eyebrows, or be more than just some foundation on you. Be more than that and push past all that and show the world with true talent and work that you're more than just a beautiful face. Your beauty and the beast.
I mean,
that's me.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
I need to say something. So yeah, I agree. I know New Yorkers always do this, but I feel like growing up in New York, you kind of have like a way of like being, and you just like, you know, this is how it is. And then sometimes people get intimidated and stuff, but yeah, when it comes to your business, it doesn't matter what industry, even in the beauty industry, it doesn't matter what industry, you have to be a beast for yourself, because no one's gonna have your back the way that you have your back, you know what I mean? So I love that too. I'm like, it's so relatable.
So good.
Yeah.
So Cover FX, obviously, again, it's just a brand that's been doing this right, but I think we've all noticed, everyone in this room has noticed that this is now the time that like a lot of brands are listening and opening up their ears and saying, we need to add those shades, and it's been happening and creating this like ripple effect. Why do you think it took so long? That's my question. What do you guys think? Like, why is it just now and not 10 years ago, 50 years ago? What do you think?
Evolution is one.
I think also for a long time, traditionally, brands looked at markets very black and white. You know what I mean? It was like, these are the boxes, and we're going to provide them to you as a consumer. And for me personally, growing up in a South Asian family, my sense of diversity was very black and white. It was like, I can either fit in this box or this box. So which one am I going to force myself into? And now, people like us that have a platform, and people on social media that just have this platform that are like, hello, we're here, and you know, we're not going to go anywhere. It's again causing brands to start paying attention to those little nuances of age and gender and sex and just all that stuff. It's just, you know, and color, obviously. So I think now everyone's like, oh, there is this demographic that actually needs to be represented and catered to.
And I think it's now easier than ever for the average consumer to let brands know what they think and what they want to, and it's really exciting to see more people doing that. And brands are listening. I mean, it took a long time. It's about time it's happening. Like, it should have happened a long time ago. But I think consumers in general are just now starting to really get their voices out there too.
I have to like expand on what you were saying. Like, I think it all came down to marketing, and I think we're the first generation that like took that control. Like, we're not gonna have brands tell us what we should look like or what we're gonna do. Like, no, I'm an influencer and I have influence over people, and I'm gonna fight for what I believe in, and I have people that support what I support. So I think we're like the first generation that is saying, no, we're calling the shots, and this is how it's gonna be, and we're just gonna celebrate everybody, and that's it.
It's true.
This makes me so happy. Okay, so my question is, so when I started my channel and things like that, I'm curious if it's the same kind of feeling for you guys. Did you go into this with this idea of feeling a role or responsibility of using your voice in a specific sort of manner? Did you kind of just fall into it? And if you did just fall into it, how did that kind of responsibility like develop in you?
I mean, I went into it very intentionally. Growing up, Peter Jennings was my hero. I wanted to write for National Geographic. So I went into it super intentionally with, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it the right way and the way that it's going to help the most people. So everything from the beginning, obviously there are learning curves, there are bumps in the road that you have to like, you know, you fall and you get back up. But for me, it was very intentional.
For me, I feel like growing up, whoever you're looking at, back then also social media wasn't as big as it was. So it's also like you said, it's new for everybody. It's not something that we necessarily thought of because it wasn't as big then. But growing up, I remember the people who had a big impact on my life, besides my family, but just artists who are out there, because I love singing, I love the entertainment industry, and I love acting, and I just remember how they made me feel and how they drove me to keep going. And when you hear them in interviews talking about their struggles and still how they're pushing to be themselves no matter what, I feel like now that I have the platform and it's with social media, it's different, and I feel like it gives me an easier platform to present that and show more of me and just let people know that it's okay to do whatever it is you want. And it helps people have a better inside look on your everyday life. And no, it's not all red carpet. It's not all this. Like today when I was getting ready for the panel, I was looking rough. I woke up, I was like, all right, here we go. And so it's important to show all sides of the industry, and from the raw to the beauty.
I'd love to expand on that too. That was something for me, and I'm a little older than, I guess I'm not going to tell you my age, I'm a little older there, but you know, coming from a TV world to now this, I went into it thinking like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then it became something, and I think for me, the more and more I do it, the audience I'm speaking to is really important, has become very important to me, because there are a lot of younger kids or younger generations that are maybe thinking about starting a family, are going to have kids, and they're asking me questions very specifically about like, how are you combining our cultural traditions for them? And I forget that, like, you know, I'm first generation American, my parents are from India, so I know everything, but who's going to teach my kids and their kids? And so kind of combining all that, my blended version of like East meets West, is something that I am realizing, both beauty as well as culture, everything. That's the kind of diversity that I really feel like is what I stand for, and I just realizing the importance of that for me.
Soaking that in, yeah. That's incredible. Okay, so this isn't actually something on here, but it just, as we're talking, it's like coming to me, and I feel like there's this like, creating Cultivate's a perfect example, right? They created this platform to like amplify women's voices and make every woman feel like we can all win. We don't have to have like one, we're not competing against each other. And you and I have discussed this before, of like the idea we're both South Asian. But why can't there be both of us that's winning? I think that that's shifting slowly, but there's still a lot of kind of like, we still got some hurdles to get by and get through. How do you think, and how like the importance of like helping each other out, and women helping women and supporting each other and empowering each other, is that something that you feel like you've experienced in a positive way and negative way in your life? I'd love to hear if you feel like that's kind of shifted.
I mean, I've experienced it in both ways. I think it's definitely shifting. I think, you know, as the space improves and there are more and more creators and more voices out there, people are realizing like you can't do it alone, and you shouldn't do it alone. The best way to do it is to empower each other and to work with each other, because you're only going to rise to the top together. If you're trying to do it alone, you're not going to make it that far. And there's room for everyone.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would
With the acting in the music industry that I'm in, I find that more people try to connect themselves to women empowerment, and they don't necessarily stick by it. And people are back to social media, so worried about the image and what it looks like, that they're posting it, but they're not actually living by it. They're not actually taking time to understand it and know what it means to actually do that. So I feel like that's the downfall with me, and a lot of girls are very competitive. And there's very few people, I have great friends in my life, don't get me wrong, but people who actually do stick by that. And I feel like we are the ones who have to just show them, like, you're not going to get far by that, and just stick by what you know and what you believe in, because you're going to go far with that, and eventually they'll fall off. And
I do think that that also brings up back to the whole brand's responsibility, because like you were saying, people can get competitive, and why can't we see 3 girls that look like us on the same stage? It's that there shouldn't just be that token girl, right? For now that brands are becoming more inclusive, it shouldn't just be that, oh, there's that one Indian girl, or there's that one black girl, or there's that one Mexican. You know, it should be, I can see 5 of me up there and be really happy that maybe if I'm going on an audition or going for a casting call, that, hey, we both might get cast. It's not like, oh, you look very, you know, ethnically ambiguous, so you could be Latina or Hawaiian or black or white, you know, and I'm like, ugh, you know, it's always like, again, fitting into a box. So I think it's, again, that hopefully if brands start being more inclusive, then we can kind of, girls and men in general can just kind of like, as a group, be like, it's okay, it's not always competition.
I've actually heard brands say that oh, we can't find them, they don't exist.
Exactly.
And it's like, open your eyes, they exist. hence Tinted's existence. Okay, so I want to close this out before we get to a rapid fire round, which is my favorite part. I would love to know how you feel like beauty has empowered you. And I think for me personally, I can like kick it off and say like it's evolved and changed. As a kid, it was my way of fitting in, and now I feel like it's my way of standing out. And I think it's just really cool, like just like you were saying, that like I now am so proud of, and I own all the like my big old brows that I wanted to thin out as a kid. The unibrow still had to go, but like, hey, I mean, like there's times in my life where I was into it, whatever. You know, the sideburn things and like my big eyes, these were all things that I was so insecure about, and now I feel like wearing a bold lipstick and walking into a room makes me feel so empowered, and I feel like so many people see beauty as so superficial, and there's such an other aspect to it, so I'd love to hear from all of you, if you could all answer this, because I think it's a really important one, of how beauty specifically empowers you.
I mean, I think that for me, it just helps me show more of who I am. And people forget that who you are is not just your personality traits, but it can be physical features, like things that you saw as flaws that made you insecure, and it helped you grow as a person. And so I think for me, just using it to help empower myself and feel more comfortable in my skin is the biggest part of it.
I agree with that as well as with what you were saying, Deepika. I think for me, it's on a different level too of being a mom. I feel like I have a social responsibility to my daughter too, and to my kids. Like, you don't have to hide behind makeup. Use it to embrace who you are and just accentuate the features that you have. And like you were saying, you know, big eyes. And for me, it's like, oh, I've always hated my nose. And it's okay. There are things that we all don't like about ourselves, but just embrace it. Use makeup and products to help accentuate who you are versus trying to hide behind it. And I think that's a big thing that I feel really empowered by when I can help other women too, kind of see like, you don't have to, you know, wear that much to make yourself feel really good about yourself. Because when you look good, you do feel good, and I think there's something about that.
Yeah. Well, beauty for me, growing up, I love art, and beauty to me is like art. So sometimes I would do it like, oh, I need to look pretty. It's like, ooh, let me try this, let me try that. It's just more so of an art form for me, and I feel like art is another form of education. It's another place for growth, for expression, for individuality, and I feel like it all just ties back into helping you discover who you are and play with things. Like, you don't have to do makeup to look like, ooh, glamorous, like Hollywood. You can do it to look grungy. I grew up in an Alabama School of Fine Arts, and so we did like old age makeup, we did all of these cool things, and I feel like it just helped you explore like who you are and what you like, and just help you just live more and just be happy with doing whatever it is beauty brings to you. Every time I say something, she's like, so bad.
I think for me, it empowers me. I'm such a rebel, so I like to do things that aren't the norm or what society is like against.
No.
So I think it empowers me to kind of like show out and like show people that, you know, if you want to put on some makeup or, you know, just do it. Like, even if you're a guy, like, I will hear guys that were always like, oh, I would never wear makeup. And then they look at you and then they're like, oh, how do you use this? How do you use that? And it like starts the discussion. It starts kind of like this movement of like people are like, oh, someone else is doing it. Because I think a lot of us kind of operate like, oh, if no one else is doing it, I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it just empowers me to, you know, kind of go against the norm of what society wants me to put in, whether it's my culture or like brands and all of that, and just say like, here I am, and you're gonna have to accept me as I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love. Okay, rapid fire questions. You ready? These are fun. They're fun. They're not stressful. Sorry. Okay, texting or talking?
Talking.
Texting.
You said talking?
Talking.
Like phone?
I actually like FaceTiming.
I was gonna say like talking.
FaceTiming, not on the phone, talking.
I just am so shocked. And then, oh wow, okay, I was expecting that.
Right?
But FaceTiming that, okay, yeah.
FaceTiming.
Same.
Yeah.
FaceTiming or talking?
Talking in person.
I'm like, I'm so
in
confused
person.
by this, but that's great. IG stories or IG posts?
Post.
Stories.
Posts.
Stories too. I feel like with this.
Not curated.
Yeah, well, it just feels like a little more, you can be a little more raw and real,
Yeah.
but like, I think the coolest pages are the ones where the actual page, the posts are really raw and real.
Yeah.
You know?
I like that the IG post is like a fantasy. It's like you're like this
like
alter ego, and it's like the perfect version of yourself. And I don't look like that all the time, you know?
Yes, you do. right?
I think, yeah.
Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
YouTube.
YouTube.
Because you're on it. She's like, she likes Netflix, but she's on it. He likes YouTube, but he's on
YouTube.
YouTube. YouTube. That's so funny. Bold lip or nude lip?
New
Bold.
lip.
Definitely me.
Nude.
Nude. And so I was like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
bold. Highlighter or brows? I feel like you're a little both.
I'm gonna say highlighters because I kind of have brows without the brows regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have brows, but I love to glow, so I would say highlighter.
A little bit of both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Highlighter for sure.
I have one more question and I have to ask it because it's too important. I feel like we're so used to saying the things we don't like about themselves, and a big part of what Tinted talks about is what, like, being confident and not feeling like you're bragging about yourself just because you're saying something you do love about yourself. I would love if all of you could share what feature of yours that you love about yourself the most. And I know that wasn't on any list. No, love the most, no hate.
The feature?
Like, I love my brows, and like I was saying earlier, I had a unibrow. I got made fun of for it, mustache too, but whatever, it's fine. But now I'm like, I have these brows, and I love them because they get like feathery and all these things. So, anyways, I think it's cool because as you get older, you start to appreciate the things that you didn't when you were a kid, and I love my brows and my big old eyes. I like this.
I honestly, I don't know if this is a feature, but I love my skin tone.
Yes.
Because I think that when I was younger, I kind of went through that phase of like, oh my god, like I'm not like the guy that everyone looks at for beauty or anything. You would always see like the blonde guy, or like, you know, that. So I think I've learned to appreciate myself so much, and it's kind of weird to be at such a different point in my life where it's like you love yourself, because when you're growing up, it's like, you know, you're like, oh, what's wrong with me? Like,
I love my eyebrow scar, my eyes.
Yeah. I love my nose, even though I don't. But I love it because there have been so many times I've contemplated getting it done, and every time someone would tell me, they're like, but that's you. And someone said, like, you look exactly like your grandfather, my paternal grandfather. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have the exact same nose. And it just reminds me, it's like everything on your face is a roadmap from where you've been and where you're going. And it's just, it reminds me so much of who I am and where I come from. So, not touching it, just contouring it.
Exactly.
I think for me, it's my eyes. Growing up, I wanted brown eyes so badly because I felt like the only women you saw with green eyes, they like never wore colorful, fun makeup. And so I felt like because I had green eyes, I could never wear colorful, fun makeup. And so for me, it's like accepting them and being like, I'm gonna wear that red eyeshadow or whatever it is that growing up I thought would look terrible. For me, that was a big thing.
See, this is a case study of why there needs to be diversity in these kind of conversations, because I grew up getting contacts to have your color eye, and hearing your perspective on that is really refreshing and interesting to hear that we all have the same sort of like different insecurities, but all have insecurities no matter what spectrum you're on, whether it's on one side or the other. So that's awesome. So I'm gonna stop blabbing. It's time now for questions from the audience. If anybody has any, you can take them. Anybody?
What do you feel that brands can do to market diversity? Like, I don't know, what do you guys feel like brands can do more to get your voices and get like people to know brands more, basically?
Put us in your campaigns.
Yeah, irony, just kidding. What am I doing? Go. All right, okay, fine. I feel like what Ami said earlier is so important, to stop getting at this mindset of the token of every race. It's so important because it puts us against each other, and it takes away from the whole point that we all can coexist, and we all need to coexist. And this idea of, we said this earlier, but it's not just black or white or something in the middle. There's a whole spectrum in between. And really understanding that. And I said that I think this is so important that you actually sit down and have the conversation with the people that need that representation. Like, don't just put someone in and check a box because it's very obvious. Sit down, talk to them, understand. And I think brands could also bring those people into their companies so they really understand it, to be able to actually authentically speak to it.
I agree, 100% on both sides. Yeah, creating the products, using the products, because there are a lot of times that I feel like brands will market something specifically to my demographic or something. I'm like, I would never use that, and that's not something for me. So yeah, if you're trying to target a woman between 25 and 36 and you want it to be specifically for a, color, then bring me in, do focus groups, do more things that are actually going to demonstrate that that is what that demographic wants.
I feel like for a long time, so like now I say like, oh, I'm Afro-Latino, but I would never say that because people would be like, what is that? Like, what is that? Like, so people would always put me like in the African-American category, and I think brands should, be more aware that there's different types of people, there's not just one type of black, and there's not just one type of white, and there's not it's just, it becomes so much more complicated and more diverse, and we need to focus on becoming educated on that.
It's not a homogenized market,
Exactly.
It's not just 1, 2. So true.
I'm gonna pull this one from the Create and Cultivate Facebook live stream. Adriana asked, how do you approach someone who might be imposing cultural norms on others?
How do you imposing cultural norms?
Like they're doing something that feels maybe like cultural appropriating a little bit?
Appropriation kind of?
Yeah. That is a heavy one.
Yeah, I don't know. See, this is a hard one for me because people, I feel like a lot of the things that I tried to hide when I was little, like wearing the bindi or getting my mehendi done, or when Kabbalah wasn't cool for Madonna, wearing the little red string, all that stuff, I was like, oh no, I have to do this because it's something I have to do for a religious ceremony or something. And then fast forward 10 years and it becomes like all the rage to do Holi, which is, the festival of colors. We did that every year, and now it's become something really popular in Europe and South America, and I don't find it, I'm not offended by it. I personally feel like there is a gray area, but I feel like it's like, we're talking about inclusion, you want other people to embrace your culture and your traditions and things like that. So yes, wear it. Obviously, if you're gonna do something that makes it,
I feel like culture is so vital and necessary for personal growth. And people need to understand, it's okay for you to experiment, take that in and get to know it. But like you said, it's a gray area between those, so I think it's a deeper conversation than what just overall question, but I think just understanding that.
It goes back to the intent, I think. It's
exactly.
What are your intentions behind when you put it out there?
Right.
You know when someone's trying to be funny.
Right.
You just know it.
Right. If you're
it's
mocking
so
us,
obvious.
Yeah.
And,
If you're just gonna wear a little headpiece to Coachella, go for it.
Oh yeah.
For me.
Anyone else?
How do you talk to, I know there's a mom on that.
Oh yeah, me.
How do you talk to your daughter about beauty?
Well, so she's 3 right now, so it's not like I'm talking to her, but that brings up a great point because it's a question I ask myself all the time because she is in a lot of my stuff. That's the content that does really well. She does little tutorials where she's doing my makeup or I'm doing her hair and things like that. It brings up a question of am I putting too much emphasis on the physical aspect of being beautiful? And is she going to translate that into, okay, I constantly have to be put together and I have to be curated really well and perfect all the time. And so it's something I'm learning every day as to what my limits are. I don't like to take pictures in front of her because I don't want her to think that every time she's like, hey, pose, 1, 2, 3, because they already do that. Kids already do that. It's like you have an iPhone out and they're like, hey. So I just try to tread carefully, but at the same time, I'm very, she knows I do makeup, she knows I love it, so she's around it all the time. And I think it's just about, again, teaching her that just because you admire someone else's beauty, you don't have to that doesn't make you question yours, It's not about, she has that and I don't, so I'm ugly. It's embracing every aspect of who you are and just being really confident. I think being confident in yourself about it, that's the biggest thing for me that I try to teach her.
Alright, so I had another question. So I like your shirt that says, my skin is not a trend.
Thank you.
I just want to know everyone's view on all the brands recently releasing their foundations and showing their wide range. How do you guys feel about the wide range and the trend of showing I know all skin colors and all foundations. How do you guys feel about that trend recently?
Yeah.
I honestly, you know, it's funny because when I saw your son, and I was like, oh my God, that's like so relatable because it is a trend. Honestly, I feel like people are marketing it because it's trendy, and it should have been, it was available before, and I think that's the frustrating part where it's kind of like, you know, I've worked with people that I'm just kind of like, sometimes I'm like, come on, let's push this, and then, you know, it wasn't until like last year where everyone was like, oh wow, like people of color are buying stuff, like it just didn't make sense to me. It was like,
yeah.
So personally, I like that we're moving forward, but I think it's kind of sad that it took till 2017 to like kind of get the pendulum going the other way, you know?
Yeah, I think too, just there's a responsibility in the beauty community. Like, it is the path of least resistance to be inclusive in the beauty community, so why not do it? Like, this is the area where it's so easy to make that happen. Other areas, it's gonna be more of an uphill battle, but like, why did this happen 5, 10, 15, 20, 30? Like, this should have happened a long time ago. It's about time, but I'm glad brands are finally taking on that challenge.
Yeah, great.
So this is a question for the vegan. I know
the token vegan.
I'm a vegan too, and I know that a lot of influencers in fashion across the board in every industry feel like lone wolves and like they're fighting against like gigantic crowds of people because marketing campaigns that aren't animal friendly oftentimes garner the most attention. Do you feel like the landscape has been changing recently? Because there is a major upsurge in cruelty-free and just animal rights in general. Do you personally feel like the landscape is changing faster, or do you think it's kind of staying the same?
I think it's definitely changing faster. I think there are more brands paying attention to it. There are more consumers who are becoming aware, and they're becoming in tune. They're educating themselves and trying to figure out what values they stand for, both in beauty and in fashion. And I think that's amazing, and I think brands are definitely responding to that. You know, are there still outliers out there who are far behind all the times? Yes. But that's just how it's going to be in any industry, and I think it's our job as consumers and as content creators to really make sure voices are heard and that brands understand what we expect from them, and it's up to them to meet that expectation. But the best thing for us to do is voice our expectation.
Okay, that is a wrap. I want to start by saying thank you to the four of you because I think that it's so important to show that you guys took your time to have this conversation and show that we do exist and we can come together and have this important conversation. And obviously, of course, Create and Cultivate, I can't tell you how much of a dream it is and how important it is for Tinted to have these sort of amplified voices of people like you guys and Create and Cultivate and a brand like CoverFX that, I mean, we've been talking about these brands who are kind of just doing it now, but they've been doing it since the beginning, and for them to partner with someone like Tinted who's just starting out to make this conversation happen, it means the absolute world. Like, I can't even talk about it because like, it's just really exciting. And so thank you for that, it's incredible. So now it's the fun stuff, everyone drinks some champs. And there is a CoverFX mixing bar so you can get your custom foundation shade, you can get matched over there. And then you all get one of these shirts, please rep if proudly, one of the Tinted, that was, it's okay. It's fine, we're done. And then you can go to the back and get a Tinted shirt, and we have a mixing palette for you too. And then Adriana over here is doing a little meet and greet, so you guys can go take a photo with her. I'm gonna be first in line, sorry. And thank you again, seriously.